And this is why I am so pleased that Dr. Tracey Wilen, a former Thank God for Monday guest, has called into our show. Dr. Tracey is a prominent thought leader on the impact of technology on society, work, and careers, and author of 11 books. Her latest book, Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends, was released earlier this year. It is my wonderful privilege today to welcome back to Thank God for Monday, Dr. Tracey Wilen. Great morning, Dr. Tracey.
Oh, good morning, and thank you for having me.
The pleasure is all ours. Welcome back, certainly. Kindly remind the listeners from where you're calling today, please.
Oh, sure. I'm based out in Northern California in Silicon Valley. I live and work in Palo Alto.
I had the great honor of doing a little traveling on business there many years ago, and you've just made the host and a lot of listeners very jealous. It's not been the worst of winters here, but Palo Alto's much nicer than South Orange this time of the year in particular, no question about that. Dr. Tracey, we could literally talk for hours about your latest book, yourself, all your expertise, and so many things and so many subjects that you have to share. But just to put our conversation in context for the listeners, please remind us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So based out in Palo Alto, and I have been a visiting scholar at Stanford University for many years, studying the impact of technology on society, work, and education. And at the same time, I was an executive for many of the firms that you might know, such as Apple Computer, Hewlett-Packard, Cisco Systems. So I sort of blended my career both with research and executive responsibilities.
We are so blessed to have you here with us on Thank God for Monday because, as they always say, there's about 5 million people who can do research in the academic side, 5 million who do well in the corporate side, and about 5 who are successful in both, and you're certainly one of those. So, again, many thanks. It's so interesting. I don't know if you coined this phrase, but I know you use it, career selfie. Share with us, please, Dr. Tracey, what is a career selfie and why, as we get closer to 2015, might this be a great time to take a career selfie?
Well, you know, I saw a statistic that Google published about 2.5 weeks ago saying that individuals take 93 million selfies per day. And that's just on the Android phone. They didn't calculate the iPhone. And I looked at that and said, oh, my goodness, something's wrong with this picture. Something is out of focus. So I said, let me go look and see how much time actually people spend on career development and personal planning. And the best number I could find was an hour and a half a year. And so I said, gee, it's time for us to maybe take a career selfie. I mean, we're spending a lot of time photographing ourselves, but that's not doing so much for us, except maybe getting some likes. So I just really started talking about it, and it went viral with the media. I've been on many TV and radio shows to really talk about trends that are happening that people should pay attention to and start to think about their careers.
I'm sitting here flabbergasted when you've just given numbers that you have as far as career selfies. As picture selfies, and then that people spend an hour and a half a year on their professional development. Boy, that is incredible, certainly. What a divergence. To really help our listeners take their career selfie, we want to make 2015 a different year for them. Let's look at some of these work trends in this 21st century digital world. Trend number 1 you talk about, contribution is key. Dr. Tracey, tell us more about this, please.
Sure. You know, in the past, being a loyal worker, someone who showed up at work and worked from 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, was all that you needed to do. But today, the world is too complex, it's too volatile, it's ambiguous, and we really need entrepreneurial employees, people who make contributions every day to sales or cutting costs. And the reason is because it's succession planning. We really need more leaders to be prepared to step into high-visibility roles, and this leadership starts in your 20s now, not waiting until you're 50.
Boy, that is really amazing how the work world has changed so radically and drastically. Now, something else you say, one of the trends, you say an A player is now a T person. What's this all about, please?
Well, we went through these phases in the workforce where first we wanted only generalists, people who could run groups, understand operations and P&L. And then we shifted to people who were specialists, specializing in marketing, specializing in IT, specializing in HR. And then we went to technology specialists, because in a digital world, you need people who understand technology. Today, in a knowledge economy, we need people who can do all three. And that's the nature of the T person: depth, breadth, and a technology overlay. Those three characteristics is really what's setting leaders apart from the pack.
I'm sitting here thinking, is it unusual for a person to be able to combine all three of them? That sounds like an awful lot to ask. Dr. Tracey, what are your thoughts, please?
Well, here's my recommendation for employees and also for firms. The way that you develop these skills, you can do lateral moves, and firms today are much more open to moving employees into other horizontal roles instead of just a vertical progression. Number two is join cross-functional teams so that you can get exposed to whether it's technology or another functional area so you can develop some skill sets. And number three is don't limit it to work. There could be classes or organizations or outside activities that you can use or do to help build your skill sets. Maybe it's volunteering at a local community hospital to build up some skills. Maybe it is joining a board of a nonprofit firm to build up skills. So I think you can look for things that work and also do things on your own.
Thank you so much for that motivation, especially as we get closer to 2015. There are different ways that we need to think and do things in 2015, certainly as far as our own development, to gain that depth and breadth and technology. Now, another trend that you mentioned, making your manager look good, which has been the traditional way to get promoted and look good yourself, has been replaced with how your strong personal brand makes the organization's brand look good. Maybe you can share with us more, please, this whole concept of branding and how your strong personal brand makes the organization's brand look good.
Exactly. So today firms are realizing that employees are the face of the firm, whether you're working in a call center, whether you're working in a hotel, whether you're working in a restaurant, whether you're working in sales. You are the face of the firm, and your brand is the image or the picture that people have of the organization. So let me give you an example. When you walk into a hotel, the first person that you meet is not the manager. You're probably meeting the bellboy, the front desk, the concierge. And your impression of that hotel, that organization, is based on that interaction. So it's very important today for employees to realize that their brand can impact the organization they work for. And it's important for employers to realize that they need to groom their employees to have strong, positive brand so that it reflects correctly on what the image they want to project.
So I want to make sure I perceive this correctly. It's not only about the organization having a brand, but employees having their own brand and making sure there's some sort of alignment there?
That's right. And employees should realize that people are Googling them and developing impressions about them. If you're taking a flight, for example, your impression of one of the major airlines might be on that customer service interaction you had, or phoning up to make a reservation. So there's a lot of factors that people build their impression of the firm on. And firms are kind of keying into this, saying, the employees are very important. I need them to work for the firm, yes, but I also need them to project a positive image.
I could see where that would make or break many organizations today, no question about it, especially that last example of the airlines. Boy, that's perfectly said. When you do get on a flight, who do you see there, and what do you think about the airline as a result? That really is very empowering and very, very factual. Now, it's very interesting because I'd like to think, from what you said here about the all-star individual, that at one time it was about the all-star individual, but it's no longer about the all-star individual, but instead about the all-star team leader. Please share with us, Dr. Tracey, about this transition to all-star team leader.
Yes, in fact, I do remember when the all-star individual, you would even get spot bonuses if you could, dive and catch and save some element of the business. But today, and there's been a number of studies coming out showing that teams are just much more productive than individual contributors, although you can be an individual contributor on a team. And so the ability to participate on a team, be a team player, as well as lead a team is becoming critical for many firms in a very complex environment. So even if you are an A player, you need to help those B players on your team cross the finish line with you. And that's what it's all about today, is having strong team skills and team leadership skills.
Maybe this is an unfair question, but are there 2 or 3 team leadership skills that you would highly recommend for our listeners to concentrate on in 2015?
Well, I think as a team leader, you need to make sure that your team have clear and well-defined roles so that they understand their role on the team. Number 2 is they really need to know the targets and the goals that the team have. What's the objective? And so that there's a focus. And number 3 is, communication skills. You need to set up a process so that people can constantly dialogue and feel comfortable voicing their opinions and ideas so that the team can really consider them all and move ahead.
This next trend of yours really resonated with me because when I started working in the late 70s, I worked at a big pharmaceutical company. The firm really became my family. And I remember people working for Big Blue, the IBM family. I believe you're saying now the firm is no longer your family, but your team. Is that correct, Dr. Tracey? And why are you saying that, please?
Well, there's been a lot of factors. Number 1, it's very expensive for firms to maintain the family relationship, which is the training, the pension, the constant grooming of individuals. And they're saying the world is too complex today. The individuals really need to take more action on their own development. But number 2 is that it is, job velocity has increased. I mean, adults, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, are really shifting jobs every 4 years, 4 months, maybe due to their own onus of wanting to move, or maybe because the firm itself is transitioning. So I think people need to start approaching work as a two-way transaction. What am I giving to you? I'm giving you skills. I'm being productive. I'm making contributions. In exchange, what am I getting from the firm? I'm getting a salary. I'm probably getting some benefits. And I'm also getting opportunities to develop myself. So it's really a two-way exchange. And I think that's important for people to realize, because you can go in and have dialogues and saying, I'm here and here's some things I can offer for you, and here are some things I'm hoping to get in return.
What an amazing shift. The light bulb just went on from when I started working in the mid-'70s as to the number of average years that someone would spend in a job or in a firm, because back then the norm really was 25, 30, 35 years. If you worked hard and you were loyal, you had a job for life. And as you say, 4 years, 4 months today, boy, that's hardly the case. No question about it. And reiterates the importance of what we try to promulgate here at Thank God for Monday, taking personal responsibility for one's career. Listeners, if you're just tuning in, welcome to Thank God for Monday, the weekly talk show about the workplace here on WSOU. Seton Hall Pirate Radio 89.5 FM, locally and streamed around the world at www.wsou.net. I'm Br.Greg from the class of 85. Much more important to me today, a very special return guest, Dr. Tracey Wilen, a thought leader, and she's written several books, the author of 11 books. She's a prominent thought leader on the impact of technology on society, work, and careers. Her latest book, Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends, released earlier this year, calling in from lovely Northern California. We've been talking about various these 21st century career trends. And the next one, Dr. Tracey, I'd like to speak with you about. The tap on the shoulder is over. I have to tell you, I am totally clueless about the tap on the shoulder, what it even is. And share with us, please, what it is and why it has become obsolete.
Well, it used to be that longevity at a firm ensured promotion, but today that's not the path. In fact, many people express to me that they wonder why those younger people are getting promoted over them, or the newer person on the block is getting promoted over them. And it's really because longevity is not the indicator of promotion. It is about the first trend, which is contribution and raising your hand and actively taking your role seriously as if you were the CEO of your role. And so I think people need to understand if they are seeing these movements and shifts happening around them at work, that's one of the reasons why. It's because longevity doesn't ensure anything anymore. And so you really need to ask your manager, ask HR, what is it that I need to do today compared to perhaps when I joined the firm years ago to keep myself relevant and promotable.
Oh, thanks so much for enlightening me on that. That is really, really very interesting because, yes, I remember in the 80s there, people who had been big pharma for a while, they, as you say, got tapped on the shoulder and were moved up the ladder there. Those decades are long gone, no question about it. Something else you say, and this fascinates me, culture can kill you. What exactly, since culture is something that can mean different things to different people, what do you exactly mean by that term, and why can it kill us?
Well, you brought up a good point that whether it's IBM or big pharma firms, they were all pretty much the same. You wore a suit, right? And then you went to work.
Absolutely.
And you could transition from one firm to another with ease because the cultures were very similar. Today it's very different. In fact, there might be firms that are more entrepreneurial, or firms that are more process-oriented, or firms that are more financially focused. So it's important for you to understand the culture of the firm, and you can find that out really by going to the websites. A lot of firms post blogs and videos now about what it's like to work there. You can find people using your social networks to help you understand what it is like to work at that firm and what the expectations are. Because I don't want people to join firms and then self-exit, either because you realize you made an incorrect choice, or the firm, more importantly, realized that you were an incorrect fit. So people should understand that firms do vary in corporate culture, and it's important to know that before signing on.
Thanks so much for in a way that even I could understand that, explain that, certainly. Now, one of the other things you mentioned about, because we hear so much today about finding your passion, but you say finding your passion is being replaced by personal exploration. What is this personal exploration trend all about?
Oh, absolutely. If you look at that, we will be living to 100. Your, kids will be living to 100 today, 120. Your work life will go for 50 or 60, in some cases 70 years. That's a long time. You will have many passions, and I think each of us need to start to explore things that we like to do, that we also do well, and that we can also get paid for doing well. And what you're doing in your 20s and that you're passionate about might end, and in your 30s you may shift your interest to something completely different. And by the time you're 50, there may be a whole new variety of choices for you to get excited about. So I think it puts a lot of pressure on people to say, find your passion. My suggestion is explore, constantly explore, because your interests will change and you will find different things engaging at different parts of your life.
I'm sitting here with my mouth open that people, and I can understand where you're coming from, living to 100 and maybe 100. It is amazing to think that somebody's career could go 60, 70 years, even longer than the lifespan of maybe a century or two ago. It is just amazing. And I think also, I know in my own life, just the technology seems to change so quickly. You would know so much more about this than I would, that they say maybe 10 years from now, many of the jobs that are going to happen might not even be created yet today. So I could see where this personal exploration would make perfect sense. The next to last trend, number 9, is be a marketable employee. What's this all about, please, Doctor?
That's right. So I encourage people, if you step into an elevator and the CEO of your firm steps in the elevator behind you, you're going up to the 5th floor together, and she looks at you and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know you. Who are you? Do you have a 30-second or 20-second elevator pitch?" Because you know that describes who you are, what you do, because you know what her next question will be. Where do you see yourself in 1 year from today in the firm? And you should have yourself prepared and constantly market to people who may say to you, who are you, what do you do, what do you contribute to the firm, and what are your goals while you're here?
Boy, that is so great to have that 15 or 20-second pitch that you can call upon. You never know when these chance encounters are going to happen. The final trend, firms and jobs come and go, but people last. What do you mean by this, Dr. Tracey, please, and why is this important?
Well, in addition to the rotation that people have in their jobs, both inside and outside the firm, the Bureau of Labor Statistics was also noting that firms today really don't last as long as they used to, and in fact, some only 10 years. So the reality is that we will always be changing jobs. We will always be changing jobs inside and outside the firm. But employees really travel in packs. You know, they pull each other into opportunities because it's all about people who like to work with other people and will really remember them if they're getting promoted or shifting outside the firm. So I think it's important to remember to keep up your networking, both face-to-face and also on the social networks, both inside the firm and outside the firm, because people will remember that and pull you along.
Thank you so much for taking us through these 10 trends so very well and succinctly. Sadly, we only have a few minutes left. We've got about 6 minutes, but I really would be remiss if we didn't address comments made not that long ago by Satya Nadella, if I'm saying her name right, Microsoft's chief executive, who, if I understand correctly, told a conference of women in technology that they, quote, should not ask for a raise but trust faith and karma to reward them appropriately. As a thought leader so great and so well recognized in the women's leadership area, Dr. Tracey, how do you respond to this, please?
Well, I myself was pretty shocked, and it is a he, by the way, the CEO of Microsoft. And I got a lot of phone calls and contacts from the media saying, what do you think, what do you think? And the first thing that popped into my head was, don't let his bad karma run over your good dogma. But
I love that.
You can appreciate that, but quite honestly, you know, chief executive officers are very scripted. So this is a shock for someone who, at that level, not, you know, just to speak off the cuff like that. But number two is technology firms often brag that they run on a meritocracy, and this is certainly suggesting otherwise. So I think it's important for people, and I tell women, look at the organization chart, look at the executive biographies, and try to understand what their biases might be, because you may get caught up into that. And you have to look at that and say, what is the culture of this organization? Is this a right fit for me? Is the messaging aligning with my goals, or is it time for me to start looking somewhere else?
As someone who believes that people should be paid fairly, whether you're a man or a woman, I find this quite shocking, certainly, and I hate to be judgmental. But now, on the flip side, you are somebody, again, who has a lot of expertise in this area. Can you please share 2 to 3 salary tips for women?
Sure. So I think, number one, you need to know your worth, and you need to know your worth before you get into a dialogue about having salary increases. And you can find out your worth. One, many firms publish it in their grade. A lot of them have grade bands, or HR might make it visible for people. If not, go out to the websites and look at salary.com or payscale.com, look at Recruiter, salary surveys. Robert Half has one. So there's a lot of information out today that you can actually know what your worth is, even down to the zip code, because then you know if you're getting paid above or below other people in your peer set. Number two is keep metrics on yourself. I would always tell my employees every day, write down one quantifiable metric that you've done for the firm today, because at the end of the year, you'll have 365 metrics. And then a salary negotiation isn't a negotiation, it's a dialogue. It's a dialogue celebrating your success and contributions. And, you know, number three is also think about things that are of high value to you that is easy for a firm to give to you other than just base salary. I mean, you have to remember, I remember negotiating very hard for an increase in base salary, and I bumped myself up into a new tax bracket, and I actually had a less of a take-home. And so then I got more thoughtful about saying tuition reimbursement is very expensive. Ask for that. extra vacation time is very valuable for me, and that has a day rate. Ask for that. Transportation can be very expensive, particularly in the East Coast. Ask for those things because those are reducing your out-of-pocket costs. So there's more things than just salary.
Oh, those are absolutely brilliant. No question about that. And what particularly resonated with me, that middle one there about each day writing down a metric. And for all of us as we enter into 2015 very soon, that's a great resolution to every day just note quickly a metric. So at the end of 2015, plenty of information to go in. And as Dr. Tracey said so well, have a dialogue with management about the contribution, the great contribution you're making at the organization. Dr. Tracey, I've really saved, I think, the most important question for last. From where can our loyal listeners purchase your latest book, Employed for Life, The 21st Century Career Trends, or any of your wonderful books?
So, of course, you can go to Amazon.com, and then you can come to my website as well, which is TraceyWilen.com, TraceyWilen.com, and ask your listeners to reach out to me. I am on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter at Tracey Wilen, Facebook, Dr. Tracey Wilen, Pinterest, Google+, so I'm out there, and I'd love to hear back from people.
Listeners, please take full advantage. We have an incredible thought leader who has just offered to be contacted by each of you. Please, please take full advantage of this. She has incredible wisdom and just so much expertise and really does such a great job sharing the good. Please don't hesitate to take full advantage of her very, very kind offer today. Dr. Tracey Wilen, we can't thank you enough for coming back, gracing the airwaves of WSOU, and thank God for Monday. Once again, you've enlightened us very, very much about 21st century career trends, about some salary tips for women. Thank you so very much. And as we get closer into 2015, we wish you all the best for continued success, joy, and happiness in this upcoming new year.
Thank you so much.
Listeners, sadly, we're out of time. This is Brother Greg saying my hope and prayer is that when you wake up on Mondays, you'll say, thank God for Monday. And for some final graces, our most beloved, Professor Stan.
Most Holy Virgin, Mother of God, Mother of all nations, whose image of Tzelm's Jehovah shrine bears scars by hostile hands, through your intercession obtained from your divine Son peace through truth and justice for the beleaguered people of the world. Queen of Peace, replace their despair by hope, dissension by love, darkness by the light of Christ. Despise not our petition, O Queen of the universe, but in your mercy keep under your protection their heritage of the rights of man and true freedom. O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary, amen. Our Lady of Tzelm's Jehovah, please pray for us.